Well, it's interesting that you say that, Rick, and let's talk about that for just 1 second. The density of unionization, both public and private sector. In the public sector today, based on the study that was performed by the BLS, 7.5 million employees in the public sector belong to a union. That's about 37% of the public sector nationally. That's 5 times higher than the private sector, and the highest of that being local government, where over 43% of local government actually belongs to a union. And that would be more or less educators, teachers, police officers, fire department personnel, that type thing. In the private sector, though, which I would say are the greatest majority of those that are concerned about the influence of organized labor in the private sector and how it has great influence to the bottom line fiscally. In the private sector, though, a mere 6.9% of workers, wage and salary workers across the country belong to a union. That's about 1 out of 15, as the graph shows. Literally, that's somewhat unchanged, but clearly it shows opportunity for organized labor to build in their rank and file. Now, how accurate are these numbers? It was something of interest here just in the last week or so, at the end of January of 2012. An article came out quoting Wade Rathke. Wade Rathke is the co-founder of Acorn and an ex-SEIU executive. Now, Wade actually had a quote saying, union membership could fall to 5% unless something serious and drastic happens. He also states the AFL-CIO misled membership numbers by tricking people to join Working America, and an association we'll speak about in just a moment. More than 3 million workers potentially are involved in this misled direction of canvassed members versus real dues-paying union members accounted for in the study. Many didn't even know that they were part of a union. Now think about it as far as the math goes. 14.7 million workers in our country belong to a union today. If 3 million of those are misled and they're not factual union members, that would actually drop the percentage from 11.8% nationally to around 9.4%. Now, how does that actually happen? Well, Rathke actually brings up a couple of studies here, and these are actually examples of some of the things that he's speaking of. First off, here is a copy of a website that is sponsored by the AFL-CIO for Occupy Your City and the Occupy movement, the Wall Street Occupy movement that is going on across the country right now. They call this the 99%. I am the 99%. He actually feels that those that are filling in the information to join this movement in order to get a bumper sticker, no less, that says, I am the 99, that the AFL-CIO is attributing or counting them into their mix of those members who are considered unionized. And really, that's not necessarily true. Folks are just simply wanting to join this movement. This doesn't mean that they want to join the union. Another example is Working America. Here's another copy of a website. You can see here as well that if you participate in this campaign, you become a member of Working America, a powerful voice for working people. As a member, you will receive updates and information. Again, Rathke, an insider to organized labor, he is stating that those who are joining this group, Working America, they're being counted as being part of the union membership right now. And certainly that's not the case. This last slide is demonstrating how Working America is actually working in conjunction with trying to draw interest of children. And obviously this is just another ploy by the unions attempting to try to gain interest in their affiliation with AFL-CIO and the general interest as far as organized labor movement across the country. So regardless, let's talk about the actual numbers that were being published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The first graph here that we're going to look at is union affiliation by age. We have here 6 different classifications. Those that are starting their career, 16 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45, 44, 55, 64, and then 65 plus, those leaning in toward retirement. And clearly, the result of this data is showing us that the higher density of union interest or union membership is in the older population. And certainly unions are not very successful in organizing and getting the attention and loyalty of the younger population just getting into their careers. Rick, I'd like to pass the baton on to you and ask you, what do you feel is the union's position when they look at this data and their impact associated with it?
Well, Dan, this is nothing new to the union. When I was working for the union as an official and as an organizing director for a number of years, this is what we were struggling with for years: how to get the newer generation to become interested in becoming a member and active within the union movement. And I remember years ago in 1999 when we had the battle in Seattle with the World Trade Organization, and we had the energy and the attention of the young people in the United States, and we used to take them and try to bring them into the umbrella of the union, into the organization, because of bringing the new ideas and bringing the new energy that the youth bring to the table. And it's like every movement across the country. I mean, if you look at the Arab Spring and how the young people throughout the world have made tremendous changes within the countries, and how that filtered here to the United States with the 99% movement, the unions quickly jumped on board to give structure to the movement, but also long-term goals is to make the union more hip. It's when they hire young people to communicate with other young people for support and for the energy that the Occupy Wall Street movement brings, whether it be good or bad. It's something that it's like riding a wave. So this is something that the unions have always been cautious of and always been trying to capture, is this energy. And that's what they're trying to do with the Occupy Wall Street movement also. They're trying to get this energy. They're trying to be part of the discussion. And this is the target audience, the up-and-coming workers that are going out into the marketplace. So this is something that they've always known, and they've always been looking for ways to capture this audience. I mean, it's the same thing as you talked about, where they're trying to go into the elementary schools and teach the labor history in the elementary school. This is something, as a union official for years, that we talked about, Dan. Educating the children on labor history in the elementary school, so as they come up through the years, they'll be more sympathetic towards the labor movement, and as they grow up and go into the work market, they will want to be union members also. So unions don't think in just what's happening this election cycle or what's going to happen next year. They're thinking 10, 15 years down the road and trying to capture this energy and try to remain relevant in the workplace.
Very good. Well, Stephan, I would like to pass it over to you, though, because as you have worked on campaigns in your history, and certainly we see the number of formal petitions that are filed in order to try to gain new membership through the secret ballot process. A lot of the employees involved in the formal drives that we are seeing here over the last couple of years involve the largest population sector, which is that 25 to 34-year-old. What is their influence, or what is their reaction to these drives, and how do you feel that the union looks at that as their advantage in trying to influence and gain their loyalty? Any comments, Stephan, based on the experiences that you have had?
Yes, Dan. I think a key point here is that, as I mentioned earlier, employers have gotten smarter on what they need to do to take care of the workforce. So they've introduced new policies and procedures to cover those things. A very important thing recently that's happened within the last 10 years to keep their workforce active and knowing what's going on has been the code of conduct, which is very important to people to know that they work for a good company and that the company cares on what they do and how they do it, whether they affect the environment, whether they affect safety, whether they affect antitrust. So companies are developing those very good policies to keep people looking in the right direction. Also, there's been a generation gap between the union and Generation X and Y, and companies are meeting those needs of the younger generation and understanding better where the union isn't. There's a big value difference between the union and those Generation X and Y and the new ones coming up today. And employers are smarter, and they know that they have to do the right things to keep their population happy and meet the needs. So the companies are doing much better. Their working conditions, their values, they're listening to their employees more, and that helps employees and employers. And employers have to be wise. They can't quit that. I mean, they have to continue with that at this point. They just can't stop doing those right things. When they stop doing the right things, and that definitely there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit for the unions. So companies have to be proactive in these areas.
I guess saying all that, Stephan, in some ways you would summarize by saying that employers, especially in the more recent history, are seeing the true return on the investment to conduct that positive type of education and experience and maintaining transparency and the positive employer relations type of environment versus having somewhat of that barrier between leadership and the true workforce, which somewhat encourages or the influence of organized labor. Let me ask you, though, Stephan, saying all that, though, I guess my question is, do you still see the urgency of employers and the need that they must continue that drive of making that investment to ensure their position and that relationship they have with their people?
Absolutely, Dan. A company can't let its guard down. It has to be proactive. It has to do the positive things. It has to communicate on a regular basis with their employees. It has to find methods to find out what the employees are thinking, what their interests are, and then they have to come up with good action plans on how to meet their employees' concerns. So companies have to remain very active. They really have to communicate with their employees. They have to look for different type of programs to gather information from their employees and then act on that information in a very positive manner.
Very good, very good.